everybody, my name is Shibby. I'm an esports colorcaster and celestial ranked player in Marvel Rivals, and it's been about a week and a half since season 3 of Marvel Rivals has dropped, and I want to give you an early season meta review for every single role. That's vanguards, duelists, and supports on what you should be playing and what has been meta so far. So if you're confused on what to play or who to pick up, look no further than this video. I don't want to keep you waiting any longer, so let's just get into it. I'm going to be starting off with the vanguards, and in reality, I'm going to lump these two together. The best two tanks in the game still for season 3 are going to be Magneto and Emma, and it's just dependent on what flavor of tank you like to play, right? Magneto is a very stable, much more defensive-oriented tank in my mind. He's also a very solid solo tank, which we've been seeing a lot of recently because Phoenix has released as a DPS. You've just been seeing more 3 DPS compositions. So Magneto really functions well as both a good solo tank pick and pairing it up with some of the other tanks on this list. Emma, still one of the best tanks in the game. I had originally thought that some of the nerfs she got would have knocked her down a peg, but she's still very, very good. Her kit is very overloaded. The fact that she has both a ranged and a melee form allows her to really deal with all kinds of threats, right? Whether it's dive, whether it's flyers, whether it's long or like mid-range kind of stuff. I think Emma is just one of the most complete tanks in the game. And she's also kind of like an anti-tank in regards to like her ability to shut down tanks like Doctor Strange, Venom, Thor, Hulk, all this kind of stuff, right? Because of her anti-dive capabilities or just CC capabilities. The fact that she bought both a damage reduction on her laser as well as losing some of the durability on her diamond form, that didn't really do much. And the fact that they reduced her ultimate charge cost as a compensation kind of buff because she was getting nerfed in other places has actually just made her a little bit better in my mind in regards to actually using your ultimate to kill people and not having it countered by a support ultimate or not having it as easily countered. You have actually a reliable way of building it up relatively quickly. The damage reduction, or I guess the damage nerf that she got on her laser, actually doesn't make her ultimate, charge build that much slower than originally thought. So Magneto and Emma, still tank 1 and tank 2, 1A, 1B, however you want to play it. Typically, you want to pick Magneto if you're solo tanking. If you do have the ability to get both of these tanks in the same game, Magneto and Emma are insane. The team up is still very good. You can also throw Psylocke into that when you run those two. These two are the best tanks in the game. The really cool thing, and a change that NetEase made intentionally that actually brought another tank into the meta, we'll call it, or as a good pairing with Magneto when Emma is banned, is actually Thing. Thing got one really big change where he's now allowed to jump to enemies, right? So he has a shared cooldown between his jump to his teammates and his jump to enemies, and his ability to actually gap close without having to use his Yancey Street charge has actually made him a lot more lethal and a lot more mobile, right? Giving mobility to a character like this, who is very melee based, is dangerous and has definitely put him in the forefront of tank picks. A lot of the time you will see Emma being banned out, but Magneto and Thing are your go-to 1-2 combo, right? Thing does very well with utilizing Magneto's bubbles and the defensive capabilities that he provides, and the fact that, like I said, he has the ability to both chase down and go back to his team still gives him a lot of utility and gives him a lot more survivability than people expect. Also, his ability to stop flyers or deal with flyers a little bit better is a nice buff. But overall, the fact that he can use that jump not just on flyers, but pretty much any enemy in the game really allows him to pressure supports better than he used to, as well as chase down certain divers or certain heroes when they're trying to get away, right? He's a solid answer into Wolverine if Wolverine ever gets opened up, but he's also very good into divers like Black Panther, Magic, so on and so forth. And he plays well into some of these double shield compositions that we see when Emma is banned out and you see stuff like Doctor Strange and Magneto. So yeah, Thing is very good. Really fits well into this meta, still struggles with some of the same stuff, but his survivability has increased simply because of his mobility and the fact that he just has more ways to get in and get out and do that bob and weave, duck and dive kind of tank play that Thing's very good at, right? Because of all of his stuff, his melee range, a lot of his damage is very, very close range. So he needs that mobility or the extra mobility to make sure he doesn't take too much damage and he can get actually healed up by his supports. Another hero that we've seen come back into the meta is Hulk, and that's partially due to the fact that Namor got some really good solo individual buffs for himself, and we'll talk about it more in the DPS section. But basically, he got a lot of changes individually for his kit where his missile speed is increased, his damage is increased. They essentially tried to make Namor a better character individually, but because of him getting buffed and because the Gamma team up is still relatively good, fundamentally, it's a very good team up. Now, when Namor is picked, we've just by virtue seen more Hulk. Hulk as well still, you know, kind of suffers from stuff like Emma, but when Emma's banned out, he has an okay matchup into stuff like Thing and Magneto. He can pressure double shield same way that Thing can in regards to his melee attacks. He's also, I think, Hulk players are getting better at Hulk, right? Like as the game goes on, we're seeing Hulks, you know, getting into that playstyle, playing the dodge and weave, the in and out kind of brawly style that we've seen, or that dive style get better. So by virtue of, I think, the player base getting better at Hulk, we've been seeing a lot more of them, as well as, like I said, the Gamma team up is very, very good. You've also seen, like I said, Hulk players getting better at actually juggling in his monster Hulk state, right? It's very similar to the primal state for Winston in Overwatch, and it was only a matter of time before we saw Hulk players get really good with that juggling. We've been seeing a lot of crazy carry combos. It's a lot easier to do it now that there's like more videos on it and stuff. So I think the floor for Hulk players has gotten a lot higher, but also Hulk with Namor is just still really, really good. And the fact that Namor got buffed, the missile speed, the damage, everything like that, just makes him a lot more lethal. Throw on a Gamma Squid in that, and you can get a really, really good hard carry performance out of this duo. I would say for my sleeper pick, or maybe honorable mention, I think Captain America is actually in a really balanced spot right now. I think Dive in general is not in the best spot, right, with Venom and stuff like that. So I think Captain America kind of toes the line between like Dive per se, but also like being a backline harasser. Captain America just takes a lot of time for people to get used to, right? His tank playstyle, the amount of abilities he has to cycle and in his kit, and the animation cancels and stuff like that. I feel like, and this is something I've said before, the burden to learn Captain America is not worth it for a lot of tank players and a lot of dive players, so they'd rather default to something quote-unquote easier like Venom. But I think if you have the time and you really want to get good at Captain America, I think he's like a sleeper tank pick, right? You can't really pick him into Emma, right, if it's open, but if that's banned out, there's a lot more opportunities for Captain America to do the backline harassment, to really be annoying and get and single out individuals. There've been a lot of high elo Captain Americas that have been finding success, especially with Magneto. Again, he can make really good usage of the bubble. He can get in, get out. If he's actually allowed to sit there and auto you and actually stay in the pocket for a while, he does do some damage, especially if you can get the animation cancels down with his melees, and you can get the burst combos down with like his shield throw plus his shield throw autos. There is a lot of mechanical things you can do with Captain America to get the max value out of it. But like I said, I feel like the player base just isn't willing to utilize him at his highest efficiency. So Captain America is probably like my honorable mention / sleeper pick in terms of like meta tanks that we've been seeing. But other than that, yeah, it's really just Magneto, Emma are like 1A, 1B. You can play Thing now if Emma's banned out. Even if Emma's not banned out, you can still play Thing and get reliable carry performances and really do a lot of work. Hulk can be played with Namor, obviously. And like I said, I think Captain America has been kind of seeing more play and climbing up the ranks as we get more further and further into the Season 3 meta. So now we're going to move on to the duelists, and this is a relatively big list, so I'm going to kind of like group a couple duelists together. But right now, I would say the Z tier duelist at the moment is Wolverine. I mean, I don't know what NetEase were thinking of giving an already overpowered hero or a game warping hero a team up that allows him to live even longer with Phoenix. Now, I know they are nerfing him pretty soon. I believe they're going to do a mid-season patch. Personally, I don't think that's enough to really curb these Wolverine players. I think Wolverine is still going to be really good into tanks. I think they're heading in the right direction, but I really think he's going to need another round of probably heavy-handed nerfs before he's truly like out of the meta where you don't have to ban him. Tanks are still going to be terrorized by this guy. That's why we also see a lot of Thing, because if Wolverine does happen to be open, Thing is arguably the best answer to him. I know a lot of people will say Emma, but Thing is the only character, the only tank in the game that cannot be displaced indefinitely, right? Whereas Emma, if you're the Wolverine player, a lot of Wolverine players are pretty good at baiting out the diamond form or, you know, playing around it really well or kidnapping somebody else. So Emma definitely can deal with him. The CC chain is nice, but Thing is probably the best answer into Wolverine if it's left open. Every game I've played so far, barring one in Season 3, Wolverine has been banned out or double banned. He is just that good, especially with that Phoenix team up that gives him that, you know, lifesteal on top of it. What I've been seeing and what we've been seeing popular getting a lot of wins right now, it's like Hela, Phoenix, Human Torch. It's a combination. Usually the hit scan player is either playing one of Hela or Phoenix, and the situation as to why you'll play those two characters is different, right? Hela, much more long range DPS, allows you to deal with flyers a lot better because of her crit ability and how her damage fall off is a lot later than Phoenix is, whereas Phoenix is a much more mid-range style hit scan player. She also does a lot of AoE kind of burst damage, so if they're playing more brawl style compositions, right, stuff like Thing, potentially stuff like Magneto, a lot more close-knit kind of compositions, that's where you'd pick Phoenix. Also on those smaller maps, the new Clintar map, specifically the control point map, that's where I've seen a lot of Phoenix players shine, whereas Hela is much better on more of those longer sight lines, right? I would say like think Midtown potentially, if you're thinking like Midtown Convoy, Central Park, she's still really good. It's very situational on where Hela and Phoenix are going to be played, but these two by far are two of the best DPS in the game when it comes to hit scan. Human Torch has been thrown in on top. Now I know Human Torch got some nerfs, but the reason Human Torch has been included is because now he is a team up anchor and he gets a 5% damage buff to pretty much his whole kit, essentially, right? He's a team up anchor. So that has now allowed him to be paired up with stuff like Hela and Phoenix. And because you've got these like more long / mid-range hit scan players getting people low either with the burst damage with Phoenix or just some of these long range headshots with Hela, Human Torch can dive in and finish off a lot of those kills. So it's a very deadly 1-2 punch combination when it comes to these DPS and this DPS duo of like Hela / Phoenix plus Human Torch. And they have just been running lobbies. The win rates on some of these heroes, it's absolutely disgusting, especially when you start getting higher and higher into these ranks. I would highly recommend putting Human Torch in your bag. I think he's in a fantastic spot. The nerfs didn't really do much to him because they gave him that team up anchor. Don't play Spider-Man with him. It's useless. I don't think you need to play Spider-Man with him. But Hela, Phoenix, Human Torch, these are the 3 DPS in my mind that you should have in your bag that aren't getting banned out as much. Some people are picking up banning one of Hela, Phoenix, or Human Torch, but these are definitely one of the 3 you should have in your bag if you want to climb as a duelist player in Marvel Rivals. Below that, you've got like the Punisher / Namor tier. They did nerf Punisher, but he's still very, very good as a hit scan DPS. He's better into stuff like Thing sometimes because you can farm your ult, even though his ult charge did get nerfed or his ultimate cost charge got nerfed. He's still a very good fundamental DPS. The buffs that he received last split or the buffs that he received last patch still pretty much stay, right? The damage, the reduced spread, all that stuff. But Namor has been a big winner this patch, and I talked about him when I was talking about Hulk with the Vanguards, is the fact that he received a lot of individual buffs when it came to his missile speed, his base damage, everything like that. So you can now reliably combo or two-shot people if you hit like a basic auto attack plus the right click. Also, Gamma Squid is very good in dealing with stuff like Human Torch. So Namor is just kind of an overall very good pick. Also does pretty solid into Psylocke. So I've been really liking the Namor rise. It is kind of frustrating to play against, but as long as you're shooting his squids with either one of Hela, Phoenix, or Punisher, you should be okay. But the fact that Namor, they tried to make him better without the Hulk team up, but unfortunately these individual buffs that he got just made him pick more with the Gamma team up. Some honorable mentions here. I'm going to throw Psylocke and Winter Soldier. We've been seeing more Psylocke, especially because Emma and Magneto are still 2 of the best tanks in the game, and the team up that Psylocke gets really increases her damage and burst potential on some of the backline supports or some of these squishier members for duelists. Winter Soldier has been seeing more play because he did get a small buff regarding his gun, his draw, I believe his damage fall off. I don't know. I feel like Winter Soldier, if you're a good Winter Soldier, you'll still get the same value out of him. But I think like in a lot of situations, if I'm picking anti-dive, like I don't want Winter Soldier, I want Namor. If I'm picking him for like high burst damage, I'd rather pick like Psylocke or Phoenix. Like there are just better options at the moment, but Winter Soldier is not like a throw pick necessarily. We have been seeing a bigger uptick in Winter Soldier after that like small buff he got in this season. But yeah, they're honorable mentions. Psylocke, Winter Soldier, still very playable. You can still carry. Also does well into like kind of some maybe the meta supports that is like Loki. If we see a lot of them, that's where you can see these Winter Soldiers got to get a ton of value. So especially if you're pairing up like Winter Soldier with Phoenix, where what I've been seeing is the Phoenix will start the fight off with the Phoenix ultimate, get everybody relatively low, maybe down to like, 25, 30% health. And then the Winter Soldier's there with his ultimate to clean up the fight, right? Maybe he starts resetting, stuff like that. So there are some cool combos you can do, but like I said, honorable mentions, not necessarily sleeper picks, but we've been seeing those 2 duelists kind of creep up in the meta when stuff has been banned out or when some stuff isn't working. Now we move on to the strategist, and unfortunately, I'm sorry, strategist, nothing much has changed for you. Luna Snow, Loki, and Invis, I'm gonna call this like the triangle of best supports in the game right now. Those 3 are still the best supports in the game. I have been seeing some Luna Snow bans or even like Loki, Invis bans here, but realistically, if you are a strategist player and you wanna give yourself the highest chance of winning or give your team the highest chance of winning, Luna Snow, Loki, and Invis are the 3 best supports in the game. Now, hierarchy-wise, I actually think like Loki, Invis is actually the best, simply because we've been seeing a lot more Human Torch and Thing. So Invisible Woman's value rises because of her ability to provide that team up, giving both Thing and Human Torch, that little extra healing and that little extra shielding. So that's why I'd put Invis. She's probably the best support in this game, simply because of the value she adds in terms of both her healing, which she got some changes, right? The healing, it's easier to get her healing off if you're shooting at multiple members, right? The initial healing burst is higher, while also giving that team up to both Thing and Human Torch. Luna Snow is still very good. When you pair it up with Loki, we've seen what you can do. You get 24 seconds of pretty much invulnerability. Although Luna Snow did and has been receiving a lot of nerfs, she's still very good. The burst healing that she can do with her clap, and the fact that you have tanks that like to play clumped up, and we've been seeing a little bit more brawl compositions, especially something like the Thing, you can get a lot of value out of your clap and a lot of value out of that healing that heals multiple members. Loki did receive an ultimate charge cost nerf, but it wasn't enough, right? Like, he's still very good at building his ultimate. He's still very good at copying stuff like Luna Snow, like Invis. Lamps are still super valuable, even though they increased the cooldown on that a couple patches ago. Like, Loki is still very, very good. The fact that Lamps is a regular ability is the crazy part, because it can wholeheartedly deny so many ultimates in the game right now, right? If you look at Magneto, you can deny Magneto ultimate with Lamps. You can deny Thing ultimate with Lamps. Like, you can deny multiple DPS ultimates with Lamp here. So the fact that you have the ability to also do a ton of damage with Loki, right? If you set your clones up properly, the burst healing is very good. Loki is still a top support in the game. And until they really fundamentally change how he works, either reducing his clones, reducing his healing, or like jacking up the cost of his Lamps and his ultimate charge cost, the fact that you have a character or a hero in the game that essentially has a free copy ability and can just copy any ultimate in the game, and he's using it to copy supports, two of the best supports in the game, yeah, he's always going to be meta. Honorable mention is always going to be Cloak and Dagger when one of these three are banned out. Also, we just have a lot of Cloak and Dagger players. Cloak and Dagger is still very good. I think Terror Cape needs to be utilized a lot better. We've been seeing high-level Cloak and Daggers really get the max utilization out of Terror Cape, especially when things are charging in and stuff like that. If you Terror Cape a Thing, that guy melts like butter. The increased damage that you do, that your whole team can do once you Terror Cape somebody as Cloak, really makes these Thing players question whether they can actually play it into your composition. So a lot of outplayability with Cloak and Dagger, which is really interesting to talk about, considering she's like, they are considered one of the more easier supports to play in the game. You still get a lot of value with their ultimate. Obviously, the healing is very easy to do, and the ultimate charge cost isn't too crazy. So those are like the 4 best supports. You can still play Rocket. It's not that you can't play Rocket. It's just you have to be more mindful of the Phoenix ult and whether they've used it or not, or placing it in areas where the Phoenix can't get it, right? I've been seeing a lot Rockets get more creative on their placement with their ultimate in terms of like putting it on high ground or putting it out of LOS, so that the Phoenix player has to choose, if I'm going to run into the Rocket ultimate, then I'm going to waste my ultimate and not do damage to anybody, vice versa. But if you're just kind of lazily throwing it onto point and they have an enemy Phoenix, they are going to get so much value out of just popping their Phoenix ultimate the moment they hear the amplifier. So I think Rocket is still playable. You just have to be more conscious of what you're doing. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications, as that all helps me out a ton. I try and respond to every single one of the comments in my videos because I genuinely do appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedules to leave one, as well as I love interacting with my own community. If you want to see more of my content, I stream over on Twitch about 3 to 4 times a week, starting around 7 p.m. PST. Over there, you'll get unedited versions of my videos, as well as we go over gameplay reviews, patch notes, and you guys can ask questions in the chat, and I respond pretty quickly. If you care more for short form content, I upload daily on both YouTube Shorts and TikTok. Over there, you'll get condensed versions of my videos, as well as stream highlights and my general thoughts on the game. All of that will be in the description box below, as well as a pop-up that will show up on the right side of the screen here, telling you where to go and all my handles. I really do appreciate all of you, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.